this meeting of the Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners. This is our regular meeting, February 13th. And we note that all commissioners are here, with the exception of Commissioner Engel, who's excused, and Commissioner Sanderson is here, but he's remote. He's dialed in remotely, so we're good to go. We did meet in executive session to discuss matters of litigation, personnel, and real estate. And we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence, and the pledge can be led tonight by our Public Works Director, Nate Bruner.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome, everybody. We'll start out with petitions, complaints, suggestions from citizens. Now, in our agenda, we're going to have a hearing on the Edgemont zoning request, and we're going to do that right after this. So, if you wish to address the board on that issue, that's your time to do it. This first period is for anybody that wants to address a different issue. Is that fair? So does anybody care to address the board tonight? Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Bill Allen, and I am volunteer chairperson of the Shade Tree Commission, and work with Ms. Cross and Mr. Barczyk. We have some concerns and questions about our direction going forward this year. In discussion with our new township manager, with Teresa Eberly, we were unclear on how we are going to proceed when it comes to finding of utilities within the right of way or the shade tree lawn. Mm-hmm. Are you able to enlighten us a little bit on that?
Well, we do have a meeting coming up, right, Teresa?
Yes, the next shade tree.
2 weeks, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, next week, yes.
Yeah, next week, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were invited. I plan on coming to
okay.
that. Teresa's going to be there, and Pam, I believe you are. Yeah. And we'll just have time to hash it all out.
That'd be a better
See where we go. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So do I still need to call you back? Yep. I will anyway.
All right.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for all that you do on the Shade Tree Commission as a volunteer.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address? Yes, sir.
My name is Dave Rockasecka. I live on Pembroke Avenue, Township. My concern is the stoplight timing on Progress Avenue and Walnut Street. There seems to be the traffic going from west to east, their stoplight there, they get to go green before the traffic from east to west gets to go. And then when the lights change to red, both directions. So I think it's unjust that the traffic from the east to west has to back up and wait again, because the traffic going west to east got to go for a longer period of time.
Okay, so you're not saying there's a situation where there's a green light going this way and going this way at the same time?
There are both of them at one time.
That's a problem.
The traffic from west to east goes green first, and then there's a period of time, and sorry I didn't measure that time. It's probably about a minute or so before the traffic going west to east or east to west gets to go, and then and then they're both going green at the same time. So I think the east to west traffic then, they're both red at the same time.
Okay.
So,
Manager Everly, could you address that with PennDOT? I assume they'd be the correct people, unless Alex, you have anything?
Yeah, so, part of that is so if you're traveling east to west and making a left onto North Progress, you know how that can be pretty difficult.
From,
I'm sorry, making a
right,
left.
a left turn from
If you're-
Walnut Street onto South Progress then.
Right, correct.
Yes.
So the eastbound traffic light allows their backlog to pass through so that it's easier to make a left turn onto South Progress because there's no
But
green
that's
area.
not the case. The traffic continues.
Right, no, it
Green
doesn't
going,
stop, but
going, right.
it allows that, the stacking that's going east to go through prior to you being able to make a left onto South Progress.
No, that's not the way it works though. The westbound traffic stops.
Right. Eastbound.
Eastbound keeps going,
Right.
okay? And then the westbound traffic gets a green light.
Right.
Eastbound still has a green light.
Right.
So there is a stoppage there where there's,
Eastbound has a left turn signal, so that's.
No.
Yeah, they do.
they do.
Eastbound has a left turn arrow.
Westbound don't have a left.
does not
Westbound don't have a left
left
turn.
turn.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So that's why the eastbound lane goes first, to allow their left arrow and to allow the stacking that's on the eastbound lane to get through the light, and then the westbound is allowed, giving the green no arrow to turn.
But eastbound does not stop though.
Who's on first?
They're still going.
No, I understand. Yep.
Okay. Thank you much.
We will check into it. Thanks for bringing that up. Anybody else?
I'd just like to add, I won't get up. The question he just asked that question in 1990 and it hasn't changed. So
It's
don't feel. Okay.
It's certainly not the best
So this is a state road and they
intersection.
won't let you make that turn, they won't do anything. So that's been going on since 1980, so.
They didn't have any paving either. Our township is starring Jesse Ross. Anybody else wish to address the board tonight? All right. Hearing none, we get into approval of minutes from our January 23rd Board of Commissioners regular meeting.
Mr. President, I'll move for approval of the January 23rd, 2025 regular.
Actually, it's a
minutes.
workshop meeting.
Or actually, it was workshop, that said regular meeting, but you're right, it's workshop.
Seconded by Commissioner Knapp. Moving bigger. Comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
With that noted correction.
With that noted correction, yes. Public hearings, I'm going to turn this over to get out of our regular meeting, turn it over to a solicitor of the Law Bureau to conduct a hearing on proposed topic.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now is the time and place that has been, I know this because there are more people witnessing democracy here than usual, so that's good. Now is the time and place for a hearing. It's been publicly noticed, and we have a court reporter here, Ms. Miller, no relation, who has the advertisement and the proposed ordinance, which we will mark as Exhibits A and B to this hearing. In addition, the ordinance has been made part of the agenda. And the public hearing is a public hearing on the ordinance of Susquehanna Township, Dauphin County, Pennsylvania, amending the Susquehanna Township zoning ordinance specifically by amending section 27204, entitled List of Definitions, to add a new definition of multiple family complex by amending section 27-1402, entitled Permitted Uses, by the addition of multifamily complex to permitted uses in the mixed-use corridor high-density district, and by amending Part 20 entitled Use Regulations by adding a new section 27-2051 entitled Multiple Family Complexes. This is a matter which is The amendment is requested to facilitate the redevelopment of 2150 Her Street with multifamily housing. The proposed amendment would vary from the current zoning ordinance in the manner outlined in the regulation comparison, which is included with the agenda. This matter has previously been before the Board of Commissioners. I believe it's been sent to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has weighed in on this as well. In addition, for tonight, we are going to take testimony both from people seeking the amendment as well as from the board and the public. Everyone will have their chance to be heard and be recorded. After this, there is no formal action to be taken, but if it moves forward, it will be placed on an agenda for a vote, but that vote will not be tonight. And so first, I believe there's a representative from the entity seeking the change. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would you stand, be recognized, and provide whatever testimony you wish? Got it. If you don't speak into the microphone, she's going to knife you, so you don't have to put that in there.
I'm very well aware.
Sir, would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Good evening. My name is Esh McCombie. I'm an attorney with McNeese, Wallace & Merrick, 100 Pine Street, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
And sir, who do you represent?
We represent Her Street Investors LP, the owner of 2150 Her Street here in the township.
Mr. McCombie, the floor is yours to make whatever comments you think are necessary for the record, sir.
Thank you. Also with me this evening is Adam Davis, the engineer on the project with Highland Engineering, and Joel Flux, the owner of the development entity, was unable to be here due to a family conflict, but he sends his regards as well. Her Street Investors LP seeks to develop 2150 Her Street as a multifamily complex. Currently, there is an old office building that used to be Pennsylvania Commonwealth offices. When COVID came and the state sent everybody home, that office was empty. We've not been able to lease it since, so it's been sitting vacant for several years at this point. With that in mind, we submitted a zoning ordinance amendment in early 2024, about a year ago at this point, to support redevelopment and reuse of that property. We presented the amendment to the Planning Commission at 4 separate meetings, April, May, September, and November of 2024, and they recommended approval this past November. We also met with neighbors last summer, and also at one point presented a prior version of this amendment to the Board of Commissioners. The amendment itself defines multiple family complex and permits the use in the MU1 district, which is the zoning district for this property. It regulates the use locationally based on size of the property, features of the property, type of road that it's nearby, trails and things like that. It also limits development on the property by dwelling units per acre, allowing up to 16 dwelling units per acre. 5%, and these are kind of the highlights. I'm happy to go through every provision in it, but I know you have it in front of you, so I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. 5% of the units must be accessible. There are several design standards, aesthetics and design standards, including requiring outdoor space, a gazebo, things like that, making it walkable. Those were intended to be generally consistent with the comprehensive zoning amendment that's been before the board, or it's working its way through the township, bringing buildings closer to the sidewalks, trying to give it that type of a feel. The original request was for a building height above 50. I want to say it was around 51 feet or so. It was some time ago that we had that. But receiving feedback from the township, the fire chief, we reduced that down to 48 feet, which I believe everybody at the Planning Commission and the chief are more comfortable with. If you have slide 1, if we could pull that up. I'm not sure who's running the computer.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I should have given you a heads up. So this is a conceptual design that we are currently working with. North is up and slightly right.
I have to block this for a second.
Yeah, that's all right.
So you have Hurst Street at the bottom, Edgemont running along the right. Towards the bottom of the page, you'll see a building that is not a rectangular shape. That is the existing building. We hope to be able to reuse that building. Although, as I'm sure many of you know, once you start digging into an old building, you never know what you're going to find, and it may not be suitable for residential uses, but our hope is to be able to reuse that building, given some of its older character. In addition to it, the proposal is to add 2 additional buildings, one along Edgemont to the right, another on the left side, back in the corner towards the PennDOT facility. Parking is generally moved to the center of the property. As you can see, the new building along Edgemont is pushed almost all the way up to the right-of-way. That's intended to be as consistent as possible with the ordinance that's already pending, the zoning ordinance that you already have pending. We took a lot from it. Of course, through there you have some power lines and things that we need to work around. The facility is intended to be walkable, so there are sidewalks connecting it throughout. Access is off of Edgemont, where the existing access is. There's a shared drive that goes back to the PennDOT facility, and so you can see to the top of the page 2 access points coming off of that to provide circulation throughout the building. We've not dug down deep into stormwater and those types of issues at this point. I think should this move forward and the developer is comfortable that the plan is going to be able to proceed, then he'll move into a deeper design. But the engineer is here, has been on the property, and is comfortable that there's plenty of room for stormwater facilities. Parking is consistent with the parking standards that are currently in the ordinance. We know sewer and water is an issue in this area that we need to be addressed. That's something that will come along as designs continue. Working with the sewer department, sewer authority to work through whatever might need to be done in that area to avoid some of the ongoing issues that have occurred over the years. Again, we're not to that point. That's more of a land development piece, and so if we are able to move on to the next step, we'll work with the township to work through that. A couple key changes from the last time this ordinance was before you. Initially, it provided for many more units. When we submitted it about a year ago, it was 30 units an acre, which was about 176 units total. When we went to the Planning Commission, they requested a reduction, so we dropped it down to 26 units per acre, and at that time they recommended approval. When we then came to the board, some of the residents attended and felt that 26 was too high. So we went back, met with the residents, met with the Planning Commission a couple more times, initially reduced it down to 22 units per acre and then 17 units per acre. In its current form, what's before you tonight, it is at 16 units per acre. That came with the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval. You will note one Planning Commission member was opposed. That was the chairman. He commented that his opposition was not to the project generally, but to the reduced density. It was his opinion that the density should actually be higher, so he was not voting to recommend approval at that time. Our understanding and review is that the current zoning permits about 92 units on the property. At 16 units per acre, we would be able to do about 93 units. So one more than what's currently allowed on the property. The prior version also required less parking. This current version, we stripped that out, and it's going to be consistent with what you have in your parking standards today. So there's more parking being provided. Generally speaking, the ordinance allows for more aesthetically pleasing and cohesive development. It maintains a similar number of dwelling units as are currently provided, as I said, 93 versus 92. It would allow us to reduce the number of buildings, though, that would need to be on the property for the development. Currently, to get to that 92, you'd need about 12 buildings, 12 separate buildings. The ordinance would allow us to increase the density per building so that we could do it in a 3-building configuration like you see there. So to give you an idea of what this might look like, if you would mind scrolling up, and I'll talk through them, feel free to just keep scrolling through, please. There are a few existing developments in the township that were designed under the current regulations. If you go up a little bit. No, that's all right. That were designed under the current regs, Wedgewood Hills, Whisperwood, and Twin Lakes, were developed and designed with the several buildings throughout. And as you scroll through, you can get an idea of what that looks like and what that design looks like. And more consistent with what we had in the 80s, early 90s through development. What we were proposing are fewer buildings like Blue Ridge in Lower Paxton Township, the Flats in Hampton Township, and Park West, that's a part of Legacy Park, in Mechanicsburg, where we consolidate the units into a larger building and create a more central, dense area rather than having them spread throughout. The development also allows finally for an increase in the tax base. As it stands currently, the property is vacant and unmarketable. The developer is in a position where he's been carrying this property for years, not receiving any income in it, and his next step is to appeal his taxes and ask for a reduction in his taxes because the properties can't be used for anything. So our hope is if the ordinance were to go forward, we would be able to develop it with something similar to what you see in front of you here to help increase those taxes and keep this property on the payroll. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the ordinance itself or what the developer's plans might be.
Let's do it this way. Members of the board, if you have any questions for the gentleman, we'll do that, and then we'll hear any comment from the members of the public who would like to comment, and then if there's any need to call Mr. McComb back up for one last word or to address those issues, we'll do that. Members of the board, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. The design that you just showed us is a schematic design, it's a
Conceptual.
And you said that was based on the proposed new zoning amendment that we're in the process of working on now, which isn't finalized. But so my question is it just in your opinion that this type of a design would be permitted under the new zoning as you read it?
So yeah, let me clarify my point. This was designed under the proposed amendment that we brought forward.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Aspects of our amendment take from the amendment that you've had pending for some time. So when we came and spoke with staff, a lot of the aesthetics, the architectural pieces, vertical and horizontal fenestration, and all those things that go into it, pulling the buildings closer to the street to make it more of a corridor. Those were items that we pulled from your already pending ordinance and put into this one as well, with the idea being if this is adopted and this is developed, we wanted to make it at least close to what would be allowed under your other ordinance should it ever be adopted.
I see.
Does that clarify?
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I like this comment that a major concern for me has been this stormwater and sewage.
Sure.
To a lesser extent, the roadways that with 92 units, how that'll affect traffic on the existing roadway, but particularly the stormwater and sewage, because there's been some serious issues in Edgemont in the last few years regarding both of those and how this will affect capacity in that community. It's got to be addressed regardless of what we do with this.
Absolutely.
And we've been looking at that, so I do appreciate your comments on that, that's something that you want to address And that unfortunately, I mean, that's not something we can really, I mean, that's the next step. So, but I just want to flag that as a personal concern of mine, that this or any other projects in that area, how it's going to affect those issues with that community.
No, I absolutely appreciate that, and, you know, stormwater will go through County Conservation District and DEP and the township for approval, following all the regulations that are out there. Sewer, water, the utilities, we'll work with the utility companies and the authorities to make sure that we are compliant and that it's not going to cause problems. And then it's a similar process for traffic. Right, there will be a traffic study through your subdivision and land development ordinance that will be completed, and any traffic improvements that might need to occur to make this feasible and reasonable with the added traffic will need to be installed in the area as well.
Are you, excuse me, are you landlocked in any of the directions of traffic flow? Yeah.
How do you mean, I'm sorry?
Meaning, how are you going to do improvements when you have a graveyard across the street? On every corner, you have something there. You know what I mean? So, what are you doing? Are you moving over into your property to widen that? That was one question I have. How are you going to do the traffic study? What are your future plans for that? The other was, what is the tax base currently set at now, and what do you foresee the tax base being?
So, to the first one with the traffic, and for anybody in the audience that isn't aware of the process, it is not a situation where we just come in and say, this is what we're going to do. Everybody has to live with it. You know, it's a situation where we come in, there's usually a scoping meeting, we sit down, we meet with the township engineer, usually at the site, talk about the different intersections, what might need to be done where, and how best to accomplish it. So it's a collaborative process that we would go through. PennDOT would likely be involved in this case as well. But the actual designs, what would happen, you know, at this point, we'd be speculating and guessing until we're able to sit down and go through it. You know, I would anticipate that something needs to change to some extent at the intersection, but I don't want to guess. I don't want to guess. On the tax revenue side of it, I don't have dollar figures on, but I can tell you that, you know, where it is right now, if the developer were to appeal, that would drop, because the property hasn't been used in 3 years, maybe going on 4 years at this point. With the development occurring, obviously that increases the value. It would be reassessed and it would add to the tax base. Unfortunately, I don't know those numbers offhand.
Oh, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We could probably look into that,
Yeah.
or someone from the township might probably give me an estimate.
Other members of the Board of Commissioners.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So, for this amendment, it would permit you to build, did you say 3 buildings with a total of 93 units?
Correct. As the ordinance stands right now, it would allow for 92 units, but that would take approximately 12 buildings, because the ordinance only allows 8 units per building.
Right.
What we are proposing, the heart of what we are proposing, is to change that 8 units to be based on the density of the acreage, not a per building. And that way we can have the same density, 93, 92, but they would be in 3 buildings instead of spread out. And that does a few things. It helps reduce costs to some extent. You have less external walls, you have less maintenance and things like that. And also, you know, while the aesthetic pieces that we've agreed to incorporate at the township's request look nice, they cost money, right? The more we do with architectural facade treatments and adding gazebos and adding walkways and stuff, that increases the cost of developing the apartments. And as you increase the cost of developing the apartments, you invariably increase the rent that must be charged. And, you know, while this proposal is not, you know, specifically designed for what one would call affordable housing, we do want the housing to be something that the people in the area can rent, that they can afford. And, so one way to do that is to do it in fewer buildings to help even out the cost between the aesthetics and amenities with the building costs themselves.
Okay, so as our ordinances stand now, I think I hear you saying that you could potentially go ahead and build 92 units as it stands now in just more buildings.
Correct. Correct.
And their apartments, is there a number of, like, how many, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, do you have numbers on that?
We don't have final numbers on that. It would mostly be ones and twos, has been the discussion throughout. I don't know if it would make sense to have threes in this area, but ones and twos have been the focus in part because of the schools and things like that. But yeah, that's kind of where they're aiming.
You said affordable housing.
Well, I was differentiating between the legal or more common use of the term affordable housing, tax credit housing, Section 8 housing, versus housing that is affordable to the people that live in the area. Right? The idea with this design is not affordable housing necessarily. We are very open to it, but the feedback we received from the residents was they do not want this to be affordable housing in any way. What we do want to make sure, though, is whatever is put in is housing that people in the area can afford to live in. Right? They are able to pay the rents.
I thought that was what you call market-based. Right?
Market-based,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, what was the question?
I said, I'm sorry, that rather than using the word affordable, I would have probably suggested market-based pricing.
Correct.
I have a couple questions. So with the 92 or 93 units, did you have some ballpark figure of how many people, adults and kids, would be moving in? I know it varies because how many, but
Yeah, I mean, if you assume, what is the safe number to assume, 2.5 people a unit for a mix of ones and twos? So call it 180 to 200 people is a rough estimate. Or no, excuse me, 200, I can't do that math in my head.
never mind. But the basic question there is that the number of people coming in, and obviously it could be also people living in the area already, right?
Right.
But also the impact of the school district too. Like how many kids are we expect to?
Right, and that was one of the reasons why, as I was discussing with the commissioner to my left, that, the idea is more 1 and 2 bedrooms as opposed to 3 and 4 bedrooms. Because when you get into 3 and 4 bedrooms, then you start getting into larger families with lots of kids that go to the schools. When you're in 1 and 2 bedrooms, you're usually having more young professionals, couples, singles, that are living together, and usually less kids. That doesn't mean there won't be kids there. There certainly will be kids that live there, but it will be many fewer kids than if these were 3 and 4 bedroom apartments.
Any additional questions from the board?
So you're going to use conventional type of financing as opposed to tax credits or anything of that?
That's the intent under this plan. Yeah, absolutely. If we're not able to do something like this and it ends up being, under the current ordinance, it will either remain vacant and be appealed, or he'll have to look at whatever's available. And if that's tax credit housing, it's tax credit housing. I mean, he can't sit on an empty property forever.
Anybody else?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take comment from the public, and starting with the road that Mr. Rawls is in, and going to the right. If anybody in that row would like to make comment. Seeing none, if anyone in the row behind Mr. Rawls would like to make comment. And anyone in the row behind, in the third row on that side, if anybody would like to make comment. Anybody in the fourth row? Sir, come up to the microphone. I'd ask anyone to make a comment to identify themselves and spell your name if necessary, and your address.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
My name is Philip B. as in boy, Woodard, W-O-O-D-A-R-D. I live at 2016 Locust Lane. So as the crow flies, it's maybe 3/4 of a mile from where you guys are gonna put this housing project. Now, it's my understanding that 27, amendment section 27-204 stands intact, or have you already changed it already? Have you already amended it to a new definition?
No, we have not yet amended
Yeah,
it.
not yet amended.
That's
So
what this is
27-204 entitles these gentlemen to put 92 units in there right now.
That is their construction, that's their belief that the ordinance allows them by right to put 92 units in, but it would require, I believe, 7 or 8, maybe 12 buildings, I can't remember what the number was. But it would be those units in a much smaller footprint of buildings.
Okay, but the section still allows 92 units, however they configure it,
That's,
correct, as it stands.
that's their understanding.
So when you guys are considering amending this section, what's the limit on the number of units they can put in when you amend it?
93?
93, and it's stuck at 93. There's no level that they can be increased if they decide to do so. So when you change it to 27-1402, it will be stuck at 93 units for the entire project, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So now there's an additional that you guys are saying here for the high density corridor. So you're thinking about adding a new 27-20-51. Where is the height of units in that? Or why you still
Sir,
expect?
the height, as you heard during the testimony, it's a good question. The major change here, as I understand it, is that instead of using multiple buildings to include 92 units, they would have 3 buildings, as you see on the
Right.
screen,
Okay.
to do 93, and I believe the height is 48.
48 feet, that's like 4
4
stories.
stories.
12
Okay.
feet per story.
I got you. So, but the number of units should remain at 93.
That is the plan that they would submit, and that is the change that they are seeking, yes.
And that would be the only changes in the entire project, so to speak. Add one more unit.
It would be one more total unit. The number of bedrooms may change, the number of, as you see, again, the number of buildings that enclose those units may change, and then the height would be 48. That's the plan they've put in.
So my last and final question is, it will be written in stone that the total number of units will be 93.
That would be the plan that they are seeking
Okay,
permission for, sir.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Woodard. Anybody else from that side of the room would like to testify or provide comment? Ma'am, go ahead.
My name is Diane Wade, I'm at 2301 Locust Lane. So I have a question on what size are these apartments going to be? What is the size? One bedroom, how much space? In the,
Ma'am, I don't
Yeah.
know, but Mr. Can you come to the microphone just so that you have your time as well, just.
No, I don't know the size of the units. It'll be consistent with the building code. It's based on the UCC that the township has adopted. So there are minimum standards that need to be met, and it'll comply with this.
okay, because the last time we were here, I think they said that it was going to be, the square footage was really high, which we wanted to get that clarified, what it actually would be. Because it was,
Until we enter architectural designs, any size is a guess. We can estimate based off of the size of the buildings, but it's going to vary depending on the makeup between ones and twos and the space that's available inside.
so this says 3 stories, but someone just said it'll be 4 stories. But the graph says 3 stories.
The
Is that-
plan, as I understand, the plan they're submitting would have 4 stories would be the maximum, and 48 feet, 12 feet per floor.
So the apartments that were shown, are they 4 stories? The one that you said you were modeling after? Are they 4
I said
stories?
this was a concept plan that, gives you an idea of what it would look like. The ordinance, as was pointed out, allows for 48 feet, which could potentially be about 4 stories.
Is the old one 48 feet, or is this the new proposal 48 feet? Or is it always 48 feet?
I think it was a little bit higher, the original time, was it not?
The original was 51 feet, we reduced it down to 48 feet. It was around 51 feet.
But without changing it, what feet is it without making any changes to what we have today?
Ms. White, I don't know. Matt, do you know? Matt, can you identify yourself for Ms. Miller?
Matt Breach, Planning and Zoning Administrator. Thank you, Mr. Miller. The current height in the MU1 zoning district is 42 feet. So
Speak more,
Gotcha. Thank you, Commissioner. Currently, in the MU1 zoning district in which the property is located, the maximum building height is 42 feet. This proposal calls for 48 feet. Thank you.
Okay, don't go anywhere, just in case. Ms. White, you have the floor still.
So my question was on the picture that we saw about the apartments that you were saying that you were going to model after. Is that 4 stories, those apartments that were up there, that we saw along that, are they 4 stories?
Scroll back and look. They are examples of other apartment buildings
I
located.
know, but are they 4 stories?
I think, ma'am, I think mainly there are 3- and 4-story buildings, but again, those are concepts, not
I
final
understand that.
submissions. Yep.
I understand that, but I was just wondering if this particular one was going to be higher, taller than the normal ones in the township. Does the township have a lot of 4-story apartment buildings?
The height of the maximum height of buildings depends on the zoning district in which properties are located in, and it can also vary by the use. A school and something else, a different use, they can have different height requirements. So it really depends on the zoning district in which the property is located in, and then the use of the property.
Ms. White, do you have anything else?
Nope, I think that's it.
Okay. Is there anybody else on that side one more time? Ma'am, please come up. Thank you.
Hello, Letitia Garnes, 2420 Oxford Avenue.
Ma'am, Ms. Garnes, can you spell your last name, please? Just for the
Yeah,
record.
G as in girl, A-R-N-E-S.
Thank you, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay, I just have a couple questions too, because I know when all of this started, somebody came up and said, what are the benefits to the township? I still haven't heard any benefits, and I'm trying to figure out why we actually have to change the zoning for one small area. I mean, it's not like it's blocks and blocks, it's one little block. Why is it that we have to change everything to accommodate someone else?
Ms. Garnes, to answer your question, they have the right to bring that proposed change to the Board of Commissioners, which they've done, and they've gone through the Planning Commission. It is up to the Board of Commissioners collectively to decide whether or not they believe that that change would be beneficial to the township. And of course, anyone could have any number of reasons for that. I think you've heard the applicant suggest that there would be a tax benefit to the township. That's for everyone to weigh, both the members of the public and the members of the Board of Commissioners. So I think your question is excellent, but I think that's what I've heard so far tonight. I'm sure there will be differing opinions as well.
Okay.
And that's fair too.
I've been to a couple of these meetings, and I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
About what was supposedly added to the, to their agenda as far as a walkway. And I have some concerns that a walking path, let me put it that way, would not be feasible on someone else's property. So is it really, are we going to get some of the things that we asked for, or are they just things to placate us?
So, do you want to come up and address the walkway issue? Because I think that's a fair question.
Yeah, I think over the summer when we met with the residents, there was a question whether we could run a walkway down Edgemont, past the next property and on to the neighborhoods, because as it stands now, kids from the Edgemont area walk along the road to get to wherever they want to be going. And so the developer offered to install a path on our property for sure, and then to work with neighboring property owners that own the remainder to see if we can either get an easement, put it on their property with their permission, or if the township would want to take it as right of way and make it a public walk. The developer is willing to pay for all of that if everybody else is willing to play ball.
Ms. Gar?
Question?
Yes, it does.
Okay, yeah, I want to make sure that that was responsive to your question. Is there anything else, ma'am?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else from that side? I'm going to switch to the previously ignored left side of the room. Is there anybody that would like to offer public comment? And would, before we close the record, with the representative, would you like to come back up to answer anything, or if you don't, that's fine?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Name? Sir, yes.
I have
Mr.
one,
Woodard. Yeah, you gotta come back up.
Yes, sir.
You getting your steps in now.
I'm going to the gym when It is my understanding that there's a green belt section right next to that building. How's that going to affect the green belt that's already there? In reference to Ms. Dawn's question about the walkway, are you going to eliminate that green belt section of in order to accommodate this?
Go ahead, address that, sir.
No, in fact, one of the requirements of the ordinance to do multifamily complex like this is that I believe you need to be near a green belt. A green belt is intended to provide a walkability, so that you don't have as many people using their cars. They have areas to exercise, and so no, there's no intention of eliminating the green belt at all. In fact, it's a feature that is desirable for the property.
Mr. Woodard, is there anything else, sir?
One last comment.
Sure.
You want me to stay?
No, you don't have to stay. There is one question that seems to be confusing a lot of people, even some of you guys on the board. If you break land in Pennsylvania, you have to provide wastewater management automatically. So whether you're asking these guys how they're going to propose that, it is a recommendation of the U.S. government, it is a recommendation or a mandate by the state government, and especially you guys, because my house is over 8 years old and you made me put one in the yard. Cost me an extra penny, but you did not deliver me from having to pay wastewater management taxes. How's that going to affect this building going forward?
Do you want to address the wastewater plant issue, or MAC, either one?
I didn't quite understand the question.
Okay, so is the apartment complex going to have to pay a monthly fee for wastewater management when they put this in?
You mean sanitary and sewer?
Yeah, wastewater, no,
Yes.
wastewater management.
The
You guys
stormwater.
have access to a fee for single homes for wastewater management. For every household, are they gonna have to pay a monthly fee?
Yeah, Mr. Woodward, let him answer that question. That's a fair question.
Okay.
Sir, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's stormwater is the fee that you're referring to. So wastewater being what comes out of your plumbing.
No, I'm sorry.
Stormwater being from the rain. Yes, the development would be required to install stormwater management facilities, which it doesn't have right now.
Right.
As it is right now, stormwater just runs off the property and goes wherever it goes. So it would have to install that, and then in addition, any stormwater fees that the township has in place, usually based off impervious coverage, would be applicable here as well.
Okay, thank you.
And can I clarification on that? When it was owned by PennDOT, they probably were excluded from paying stormwater fees? Because it was I know there's an issue going back and forth as whether they should, but my understanding is that like state government buildings don't pay those fees. Is that correct? Or
I think there's two issues. Number one is that there is an issue in the courts.
And,
Most
yeah,
cases,
right, I understand, okay.
But also, the one, I think, that when PennDOT owned it, it may have been before the institution of the stormwater fee by the authority. And number two, there is some an exception for state-owned buildings with regard to that, but that's not an issue here, obviously, because it's privately owned. Mr. Woodard, did you get your question answered,
Yes.
sir? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Last chance for any public comment or any comment whatsoever on the plan.
Are those that are online allowed to address?
Yes, disembodied voice, please identify yourself and please comment.
My name is Hal.
Good evening, my name is Jayon Folks, 2500 Locust Lane.
Sir, can I just interrupt you 1 second? Can you just spell your last name so that the court reporter has your name correctly in the record, sir?
Yes, it's F as in Frank, O-L-K, S as in Sam.
Thank you, Mr. Folks, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank the Planning Commission and the Township Board of Commissioners for hearing us, our concerns this evening. I have a few comments and questions. One, on page 1 of the outline, revisions on the third whereas, it reads, in certain circumstances, denser housing in appropriate areas is preferred in the township to address the increased demand and increased cost for housing. I'd like to ask what criteria is being used to determine certain circumstances and appropriate areas.
Mr. Folks, I think it's generally a whereas clause which sets out the context, but it's not a measuring stick, I would suggest to you. So it's a general statement about policy, not a criteria that would, either exclude or include, if that's a fair answer to your question, sir.
Yes, can we recommend that the language would include that it not adversely impact particular communities and wards, but protect the neighborhood of its character?
I think, Mr. Folks, if you would email that suggestion to the township manager, whose address is online and easily found, that would be helpful, so that your suggestion can be included in the record. Would you mind doing that, sir?
No, I wouldn't mind at all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You continue to have, what's that?
Just as a follow-up.
Let's.
Do you want to do all of them?
I want to let Mr. Folks have his say and then have you have the opportunity to address that. Mr. Folks, I anticipate you have some other issues, so please.
Yes. Okay, at present, there's only one site that meets the multifamily complex definition. With the new definition, there will be 5 sites that meet that definition. Do we know where those other sites are, where they're located? And then what impact would this have on those other sites?
Okay, I got that. Is there anything else you want to bring up? And we'll have people address these issues together.
Yes. Also, I believe the parking in previous was stated at 1.5 spaces per dwelling. In the unit, what's the new provision state for parking?
Okay, and anything else, sir?
Yes, you covered the height, so the height will not exceed 48 feet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and the proposed number of buildings is 3, is that correct? Could that potentially change when it reaches the planning process?
It's been through the planning commission, and this is the plan that they intend to submit with 3 buildings.
Okay, and then just 3 more items.
Sure.
And it just may be prematurely, but there's no mention on stormwater management facility. There's nothing included in that. It may be too early for that, but I'd just like to bring that to attention.
Mr. Folks said, you just heard the comment for, Mr. Woodard brought it up, and I thought it was a good idea.
Okay.
But the representative made clear that there has to be a stormwater planning module, and there will be stormwater for this property when and if it's approved, and when and if it comes to beyond the plan. So,
okay.
Good question.
And then
addressed. Yeah.
Okay. And then Landmark Realty is no longer listed on the sign at the property. Is there a new owner, or what's the new company?
I'll get that addressed. And you said 3, but if there's a bit more, let me go.
One more, I promise.
Yeah.
Or the design review committee meetings open to the public?
Okay, I'm going to ask both Mac and the representative to come up to address these questions that we'll deal with. Mac and Asher first. So Mac, let me ask you the first question Mr. Folks asked, that under the definition, there'd be one site, then there'd be 5 sites, and what impact? Can you address that, sir?
Certainly, thank you. In our identification, this ordinance is very narrowly targeted. Given all the qualifiers, location along a collector and arterial road, 5 acres in size. And as a matter of fact, there are only 2 other properties other than this one in the MU1 zoning district that are of 5 acres of size or more. The first one is 2140 Hurst Street, which is adjacent to this, going west into the city of Harrisburg, which is owned by PennDOT, but does not qualify because it only fronts along one street. The second site in the MU1 district that is greater than 5 acres is 2221 Forester Street. It's currently occupied by the DGS Garage. And this one is questionably applicable. In our research, I think this would be something that would come down to the determination of the zoning officer if it were to be proposed as a multiple family complex, depending on the road classification and how you define frontage. But those are the only 2 properties, and I think only one, there's even a question of if it could be possible under the standards of the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Now, let me address the parking question. I think that's for Ash. The parking was 1.5 spaces per dwelling, and I think the question was, what would they be now under your current proposed plan?
Yeah, and just to make sure we're all talking about before and after and how that applies. So the current proposal is to not change the parking at all. So it would be under what the existing zoning ordinance is today, what you would be allowed to do right now if I weren't up here asking to make any changes. In other words, we're not suggesting to change it. To answer your question before, we were asking to reduce the parking requirements down to 1.5 per unit. But we got rid of that and are just starting with what's already in the ordinance as of today.
And how many parking spaces is that, if you recall?
It is 2 spaces per dwelling unit.
That's like 180 spaces or something like that.
Yeah, 2 per dwelling unit, and then I think in the same district, retail's 1 space per 250 square feet of gross floor area. So that's, 2 per unit.
Right, okay. The question the gentleman asked was about Landmark Realty, and the sign wasn't there. Do you want to address that, sir?
Yeah, the developer who we represent had been marketing the property through Landmark Realty. Landmark Realty is not the owner, they're a local commercial realtor. So they had been marketing the property, and if the sign is down, I'm assuming that Landmark is no longer marketing it, and the developer may be looking at a different broker, or it's hard to say.
Okay, and then Matt, do you want to address the issue of the design review meetings and whether they're open to the public?
Sure. The design review meetings are, Commissioner Rothrock can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they're held on the 3rd Friday of the month at 1 p.m. and they are open to the public.
Mr. Folks, did we address all of your questions? And if we haven't, is there anything else you have?
Yes, I do have one more, I'm sorry. You did address them, thank you, I do have one more.
Sure.
For the second question, as I asked about the additional sites, can we eliminate in the new revision, eliminate the transportation requirement?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Back to you.
So that's page 2, B and D. D says the lot shall be located within 500 feet of at least one public transportation route or stop.
Yeah, so we included that provision because a lot of times when you're doing multifamily or multifamily complex, individuals that live there use public transportation. Similar to having the green belt nearby and sidewalks and other things. And so it's generally a good planning practice to have multifamily near bus routes and other forms of public transportation.
Okay, and will, for this particular site, will this be taken into question during your traffic study, considering the congestion of the area?
Thank you, Mr. Folks. So that the public transportation portion of this project, I don't think necessarily would occur during the traffic study. However, Township does coordinate with CAT, Transit Authority for the area, and for land development plans like this along the identified corridor, they would be notified and there'd be coordination and plan review going on for the public transportation piece of this.
Mr. Folks, is there anything else?
No, sir, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your participation. Is there anybody else online that wants to comment? I am hearing no one, but I appreciate that. Is there any, one last time? Sir, please come up to the microphone. Sir, would you identify yourself?
Yeah, my name is Victor Banks, Albert Victor Banks. I'm a resident of Hodges Heights, actually, of Royal Paxton Township. But I'm a long-term resident and grew up in Susquehanna Township and in the Edgemont community. And this was something I've attended meetings in the past to learn a little bit about what might be happening around the periphery of the Edgemont area. And it struck an interesting chord with me. So I had a couple of questions based on the conversation that's been going on. And I guess have questions more than comments. Is there an open space requirement for this site? And is it being satisfied? With all the parking space that's been included in the design, there's no open space within the box, within the confines of the site. I was wondering, is the developer looking for open space satisfaction by the existing playground that is, I don't know, a half a mile away? Or is he looking to not have open space allowed at the site? And that was just a general question. I don't know if there's a, I've attended some of these meetings before, and some of these questions that I had in my mind, I thought were directed to the developer and his team, and they were going to resolve, I guess, exploration of the sewage and the water runoff, the stormwater, and all of these kinds of things. I'm very surprised to find months later those things are still not addressed. But that was one issue that was plaguing me, because I know there's acts and requirements for open space for multi-family or congregate housing scenarios. And I was wondering, maybe this is for another, well, who's the market? Is the market maybe not individuals who might want to live in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment? Or is the market maybe for elderly housing? Is it targeting an elderly housing complex, which paints a different scenario altogether as to what these open space requirements might be? The need for parking would be reduced. I don't know, but that's a question that if he hasn't considered it, maybe he would consider it. Maybe that would make this site a little bit more attractive to everyone involved. I don't know. I have to put my eyes on. I was looking to see if there's a provision for, well, according to the handout, there was a contract issued to a contractor who is, I guess, under direction of the township, pursuing a study to determine the viability of the site, market assessment, or it's not really described as such, but I think it's a feasibility study to determine if the site is going to be economically viable. I don't know, but it's mentioned in the agenda. I guess the contract was lifted recently and the study hasn't been produced. If the study was produced, that would lead a lot of new light on this project, whether it's viable to pursue at all. And maybe the scenario that the developer and his representative is toying with as to whether or not to abandon the project or to change it or something might be a little bit clearer to accept. But those were the
So Mr. Banks, let me address a couple things and let Mr. Breach address a couple things. Let me first note for the record that Mr. Banks is wearing a shirt with actual literature on it, and he's sort of raising the tone of our discussion, so that's good. So appreciate that. Also, with regard to the economic study, I think you're referring to the STEM study, which is in the agenda.
Yes.
That's for the entire township, not
Okay.
for this property. But I appreciate you mentioning that. It's an important study, but it's not for this property specifically at all.
But it might be included.
I would say broadly, the entire township would be concluded in terms of how the township, the point of the STEM study that you mentioned is for an independent party to come in and make sure that the township is running efficiently and economically, both the government and its development. So but it wouldn't focus just on that property or even the Edgemont district itself, but it's a good question. But in terms of Mr. Banks' questions, I think we answered the question about stormwater earlier, that there will be stormwater planning as a necessary part of this if it goes forward at all. That's not assured yet until an amendment is, that will be addressed in specifics, and there'll have to be engineering plans and approvals with regard to that. With regard to open space, Mr. Breach, if you could answer Mr. Banks' question, and with regard to the use for elderly housing, if you would answer that when it's appropriate. So Mr. Breach, please answer Mr. Banks' question with regard to open space.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Miller. And I would like to point out that there is a provision in the ordinance that reads as follows: a swimming pool, fitness center, or other indoor or outdoor area of active or passive recreation shall be provided in the property. So that is required under this ordinance. I would also like to state that, if this ordinance and this plan were to move forward as a part of the land development process, our subdivision and land development ordinance requires open space. In the alternative to that, if feasible open space can't be provided on site, the developers have the option to provide a recreational fee in lieu of, which is provided on a per unit basis, and that fee in lieu of the funding for that goes into the township's recreation fund to make improvements to parks and other recreation facilities around the township. And as Mr. McCombie noted as well, the green belt runs along Edgemont Road, and there is a provision in this ordinance that requires the maintenance of that and requires that walking, there's pedestrian activity throughout the site.
Mr. McCombie, do you want to address the elder housing issue?
And just one thing to add on the green space, whether we're talking, open space, rec space, or just green area, the impervious coverage maximum in this zoning district is 70%. That plan that's up on the screen is at 59%. So there's a significant amount of green grass, not pervious throughout the property as well. When it comes to elderly housing, I think that's something for down the road. We are certainly not opposed to it, but we'll have to see, how designs come out and what makes sense. But this is not at this time intended to be a 55 plus, 65 plus limited in that way.
Thank you, Mr. McCombie. Thank you, Mac. Is there any other questions or issues for the public comment before we close the record? Ladies and gentlemen, let me make a general comment before we do close the record. The only way that this process works is if citizens and interested parties come up and provide comments. This plan has changed significantly since the first time it was discussed, and the kind of input the community has provided does two things. One, it improves the plan and the process. Number two, it allows the neighborhood and the neighbors to have input, which is important to how we work. So there are a lot of things you can do in a Thursday night in February rather than come out to a public meeting, although as a fan of democracy for 30 years, I think it's great that people do come out. But I know the Board of Commissioners and myself appreciate people's willingness to come and ask questions, hold the township accountable, and to make sure that people are heard and it's important. So thank you for your input and the time you take to provide that input. With that, we will close the public hearing, and then in the future, if this matter appears on an agenda, it will be properly noticed on the agenda so that people can provide comment and we can move this forward. So thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you again to the people who have participated, and this closes the record and the public hearing.
Great, thanks, Mr. Miller. Mrs. Everly, what do you want to do in terms of setting a date for consideration?
With proper notice, March 13th gives us an opportunity to advertise, correct? Yeah, so the March 13th could be the date when this is brought forward.
Okay. Is there a motion by members of the board to set it March 13th for place on the March 13th agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? And also to authorize the advertisement, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And thank you all for your time and attention tonight. It's much appreciated. All right. Next up is reports of committees. First up is buildings and grounds.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. All I have to report is that the bid opening for our municipal building sidewalk contract is going to be February 20th. So we'll be getting that. The bid's closed at that time. We'll see where we are. That concludes my report.
Budget and Finance, Commissioner Sanders is there.
Yes, I'm here, thank you.
Okay, do you have a report for us?
Very briefly, we will be getting together a little earlier this year than our traditional schedule, probably sometime in March, April, and then again in June. The overall theme here is for the board. Please start thinking about the budget projects long-term. We have quite a lot to consider this year. Without going into the laundry list, as we always do, we rely upon your insight and communications. Don't hesitate to bring it up at any time on topics that might be of interest to you specifically or your neighborhood. We do have some pretty big line items to focus on as development topics, including the capital improvements, the roads. We do have quite a number of staff that we have to replace. All of these are related to the budget and how we plan things for this year and future years. And those will take some substantial planning, not just decisions to be made. Of course, emergency services is always at the top of our question mark list of questions to ask. Manager Everly, do you have anything to add?
No, Commissioner, I think you covered it all. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you very much, and that's all, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Hang up report. Public Works, Commissioner Knapp.
Yes, Mr. President. At this time, no report. We'll discuss public works later in the agenda.
Ready.
Thank you.
Health and Sanitation, Commissioner Rebarczyk.
I do not have a report this month, thank you.
Admin and Personnel, Commissioner Knapp.
No report at this time, sir.
Police, Commissioner Engel is not here. Commissioner Clovis, you have anything?
None, sir.
Thank you. Fire and EMS.
Yes, Mr. President. We did meet a couple weeks ago. Briefly, a review of our fire service agreements obtained over the past 7 years is now just over $1.8 million with 4 additional grant requests pending. As far as fire statistics for 2024 that was brought out at the meeting, Total calls for the township fire rescue services was 1,904. This is an increase of 21% from 2023. Progress Fire responded to 1,099 of those calls, an increase of 23%. The average number of firefighters per call was 9, and the number of times the rig failed a request for service was 33, or 2.5% of the total requests. And Rescue Fire Company responded to 805 of the calls. This is an increase of 19%. Average number of firefighters per call was 6. And the number of times a rig failed a request for service was 141, or 13% of the total requests. EMS services statistics for 2024 responded to 7,220 emergencies. 67% of those were in the township. This is a 29% increase in call volume over 2023. And 63% of those calls were to residential properties. And 55% of the calls were to patients 60 years and older. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Planning and zoning, Commissioner Rothrock.
Thank you, Mr. President. There was a planning commission meeting on the 27th of January. There was one item on the agenda, that was the 2834 Doan, I think it's pronounced Doan, D-O-D-E-N. Dean. Oh, Dean, okay.
Tomato, tomato.
Oh, we're making progress here.
Go back to Lebanon.
Sorry. It's in the 4th Ward, and it's a subdivision of a 6.5 acre lot that's divided by the road, and one smaller part of it has a single family house on the north side of the road, and the rest of it is along Paxton Creek and is not developable. The Planning Commission did recommend waiver of 3 waivers, preliminary plans and sidewalks for both lots, subject to conditions which include a fee in lieu for the sidewalks on one lot and a trail easement on the other lot. And also recommended plan approval of the subdivision. This item is on our agenda tonight for action by the board. The zoning hearing board meeting on the 5th of February was canceled. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. School Board Commissioner Paloma.
No report, but the next school board meeting will be on Tuesday, the 18th at 7 p.m. at the school district offices in Interstate Drive. That'll be all.
Thanks. Authority Commissioner Napper.
No report, sir.
Good. Shade Tree Commissioner Cross.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next meeting of the Shade Tree Commission will be on February the 20th at 4 p.m. And that ends my report.
All right, thank you. Communications, Commissioner Barczyk.
Just to mention that folks have probably found their latest township newsletter in their mailboxes recently. So just a shout out to all the folks who put that together. It looks great. Thank you. That's it.
Does look nice. Human Relations, anything?
No report.
Parks and Rec, Commissioner Paloma.
Thank you, Mr. President. On January 21st, the RAC met, and we have one agenda item today. Also, last week, the 29th of January, we held a kickoff meeting for the 6th Park Master Plan, which is Stabler Park, Market Grove, Shut Mill, Apple Creek Farms, Lashmere Swim Club, the former swim club, and Plum Alley Park. So this will be a 16 to 20 months engagement, and we'll be announcing a first public meeting soon. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Okay, business contracts. Number 1 is authorize Keystone Municipal Solutions to provide consulting services to Susquehanna Township, the Department of Community and Economic Development Strategic Marketing Planning Program, STMP grant. The cost not to exceed $71,450. Manager Everett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Susquehanna Township was awarded the DCED Strategic Management Planning Program grant, which provides matching grant funds to assist municipalities to develop comprehensive multi-year financial plans and establish a short and long-term financial objectives. The township received 6 proposals. After interviewing candidates and thoughtful consideration, the township review committee is recommending Keystone Municipal Solutions to provide the consulting service to the township. Keystone Municipal Solutions will provide the township with a 5-year financial and operation plan at a cost not to exceed $71,450. Note here that that is a 50-50 split, so our portion would actually be $35,725. And with us tonight is Brooke Quinlan from Keystone Municipal Solutions to give us just an overview of the project. If you'd like to come forward. Oh, nice to see you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Brooke Quinlan, and I'm a senior advisor at Keystone Municipal Solutions. We did provide a handful of slides. I'm not sure if...
Working on those right
there. Okay, perfect. And I can run through them if you would like. If you had a chance to review them, I'm happy to also answer any questions. I'll take whatever approach is preferable to the board.
Okay, why don't you just go through your slides, take it from there.
Okay, and feel free to interrupt me if there's a question about a particular slide. The opening slides are just related to a high level about KMS, headquartered here in Harrisburg. We have we like to say a strong team and a deep bench. Some of you have already met my colleague Dan Connery, who was here for the interview. Dan and I usually work very closely on these engagements and we project manage together. We also have various other members of our team who are specialize in public safety. We have a former chief of police, 35 years of public safety experience. We're partnered with Navarro Engineering, also fairly local. They'll help with public works, the portion of the report that focuses on public works. I heard some discussion from Commissioner Sanderson about capital needs planning moving forward. Navarro will provide some expertise within our plan. In fact, much of what the commissioner mentioned, there's a lot of overlap in what we will do in this plan and what it sounds like your upcoming budget and finance meetings are. It's a good time to start a plan like this because it will align with budget talks. The plan usually takes about 6 months to produce. So around August, you'll have a multi-year financial plan that will inform your 2026 budget process. This is a visual representation of our breadth of experience. Lots of clients across the Commonwealth. We're very familiar with the SDMP program in particular, 5-year multi-year planning, some of it in Dauphin County, several municipalities nearby. The next slide walks through the building blocks of the plan, what we will actually do to produce the 5-year plan. And the first step is a financial conditions assessment, and that's essentially a 5-year look back. We take a look at every major fund and performance over time and identify the factors and the forces that have led the township to this moment. I heard some discussion about this discussion tonight was actually informative for me and for creating the plan related to tax-based expansion. So while our plan would be focused specifically on any parcel, we would take a look at changes in the tax base over time. Has there been some contraction? This is a potential in expansion. Taking a look at, if one of the questions, Commissioner, was how would this impact our tax collection? There's a real estate piece to that. There's an EIT piece to that. We would include that in our analysis moving forward. And that's the financial trend analysis. We call it a baseline forecast. It's essentially, if trends persist moving forward, what's the financial outlook for the township over the next 5 years? Unsurprisingly, when we conduct this process for most of our clients, there's deficits moving forward. So if you do not increase your real estate taxes, you do not make any changes to improve efficiency or control workforce costs or limit workforce costs, generally, we see deficits. As a part of that process, we work very closely with elected officials and staff to conduct what is called a management audit, and that's really just a look at all of your departments, and functional areas and identify areas where we think there can be improvement. They may be operational, they may have a financial impact, they may be specifically workforce related. In fact, in many of the plans that we've worked on recently, we have an entire chapter related to just workforce. And I imagine that would be applicable here. And those three pieces then build into what is the plan. And the plan, again, there's a baseline forecast, and then there's a series of recommendations to improve that forecast. And we call that the revised financial forecast, which incorporates the implications of those recommended actions. That plan is then accompanied by an implementation strategy, because too often there are many plans and they sit on shelves and they're not actually implemented. So we include a schedule prioritizing the initiatives, assigning responsibility, assigning deadlines to the key pieces of the 5-year plan. What makes us different? I mentioned some of this at the start. Our team, we have a very diverse group of experts. We have public safety experts, we have workforce experts, we have members of our team who've been elected officials, members of our team who've been municipal managers. And all of our expertise together makes our team unique. Also, our approach to public input. Mr. Miller, you mentioned something this evening that was, I jotted it down.
Relevant?
You said something very relevant.
How'd that happen?
You said the public input makes the plan better. And it's also very relevant for our planning process. So we hold public meetings. So if we are engaged, I would be back with my team and we would deliver our findings and results. But we also have a survey. It's both digital and it's paper. And the point is to engage a broader group of citizens. It seems like you have robust participation at the meetings, but there was also a broader group of your citizens that you would want to ask about the priorities in the plan, rate service levels, is the township moving in the right direction? We usually have a strong response rate, and we include those survey results within our plan. I mentioned earlier actionable recommendations. I think this is critical. We have set, and some of us have set in your seats, we have municipal managers, so when we make recommendations, we do not make recommendations that cannot work or cannot be implemented. And we also have extensive experience with all types of municipalities, facing all types of challenges, some of which I've heard this evening, tax base contraction, a look at your tax base mix, all of that are things that we have done successfully in various other municipalities. I'll pause for questions. The only thing I will add is timing. Generally, I mentioned this somewhat. It's usually 6 months. So if we were to get started in this month or next month, August would be the final report. But along the way, we deliver interim findings. First, the financial conditions assessment and trends analysis is usually the first public meeting that happens 3 months or so into the project. And then we can solicit feedback from residents, hear from elected officials, and then generally 3 months later, we come back with our final report to solicit additional feedback.
So in us undertaking this initiative, along with the outcomes of the study itself, actually can leverage grants and credibility in the grant seeking process, as I understand it.
Yeah, are you speaking of the STMP Phase 2
Yep.
part? That's a very critical benefit of participating in Phase 1. So Phase 1, the 5-year plan includes the series of recommendations I referenced. And when we make those recommendations, we'll target ones that we think are eligible for Phase 2 grant funding. We've had a lot of success with our past clients then receiving follow-on funding to actually implement the initiatives that are in the plan, and you receive the same grant match. So if you're 50% on Phase 1, you get 50% of help on Phase 2 grant initiatives as well. And some Phase 2 initiatives are often, they're centered around things like capital improvement planning. I'm not sure what the state of the capital improvement plan is for the township now, but there could be assistance to help from another third party to specifically work on that issue. Some of our clients have received grant funding for technological analysis, software upgrades. There's a variety of initiatives that will be eligible for Phase 2 grant funding.
And you probably mentioned this already. How often are your reports to us quarterly? Where you let us know where you stand, status report is what I'm looking for.
The status report, so we provide a status report every month on what we've done, but our public reporting, our actual deliverables, generally there are 2 main deliverables, 3 months, 6 months, but you'll hear from us as well. We'll be interviewing you, we'll be interviewing your staff. It's a fairly intense process for the first 4 or so months, then we go write our report and present.
The entire project is completed within about 6 months with the final report, and the final report is a 5-year study implementation for how we would consider moving forward on financial, operational. Correct?
Exactly, yes. The 5-year report will have, and I'm thinking of the amount of recommendations. Generally, we have 50+ recommendations that are varying levels of priority and varying levels of high level into more granular operational issues. And we'll deliver that as a part of the plan with implementation timelines, identifying if there's other grant funding opportunities to help implement those. But that would be August. We would be intending to deliver that final report to all of you around that time period.
Any other questions from members of the board? Anything you wanted to add, Teresa?
No, thank you, Brooke. That was really excellent. I think she covered all the important pieces. It's a really great opportunity and a good tool for the township to really look inside and make those, those recommendations that really will help us move forward and set us up for future grant funding. They did a really nice job in the interview process. I think one of the key things that we pulled out of it is that survey is really important. They'll ask questions about how we doing on our level, our rate of service, whether it's, township codes. It gives you the broad spectrum, and it really does help us get a better understanding how we're doing. We think we know how we're doing, but that tool really is helpful in really opening our eyes where we are doing well and areas where we can certainly improve. But overall, it's a fantastic project. Everybody will be involved. We'll look for everybody's input because it doesn't work unless we have everyone's perspective, not only the commissioner's staff. So they're fantastic at walking everybody through the process, and look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Mr. President, I move that we authorize Keystone Municipal Solutions to provide us the services.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Knapp. Comments or questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Look forward to
See you
it.
soon.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Next up is authorization of the Wood Park electric bid. Mr. Knauss, you want to address that, please?
Thank you, Commissioners. As we have been discussing here over the past few months, part of our final construction on Boyd Park is to bring electric into the park to give us some low-level lighting in the parking area and in both of the pavilions for more than anything security sake, and then also electricity for future programming and events that we do there. We've been working with HRG to develop a plan, which they have. We're estimating costs for the installation of approximately $68,000. That would be coming from the Recreation Developers Fund. And at this time, the tentative dates, we're looking to advertise the bid on February 20th and the 27th, opening the bids on the 25th of March, and then hopefully completion, substantial completion by July 8th of this year. And then also at our January 21st meeting with the Recreation Advisory Committee. They did review the scope of the project and recommended that the board authorize the project to go out to bid.
Second ward will be happy, huh? Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to approve the bidding on the installation of electricity at Boyd Park.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Isbro. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Stay around.
You're on a roll.
Yeah. This one is to authorize the performance of a boundary survey for Wedgewood Hills in the amount of $16,150.
Yeah, so in the preparation of the developing the master plan that has been completed for Wedgewood Hills Park, one of the grant possibilities that we're looking at is a land water conservation fund grant, which is a federal grant. Hopefully it'll be in existence by then. But part of the requirement is a 6F boundary survey to be done on the park, which will then, once we go into, if we would go and award an LWCF grant, that boundaried area would be then permanently protected for recreation moving forward, outdoor recreation. And we currently have a grant from Dauphin County Share Program, or the gaming grant, for $38,000 for design engineering work at Wedgewood Hills Park. So this would fall within that as part of our process. And at this time, we're looking for the board to authorize HRG to do that 6F boundary in the amount of $16,150 and utilizing the funds from the grant for that.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Comments or questions? When this parcel was acquired, there were needs and bounds studies, I'm sure, done as part of the appraisal process. Can't use any of that data.
It's a 6F boundary is a specific survey that needs to be done that the federal government requires.
So you're saying no?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. I would ask. All right. Any other comments or questions? We call the roll. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Doug. Next up is authorization of the retainer agreement project assignment with HRG for the 2025 Susquehanna Township paving project in the amount of $74,165.
Good evening, Commissioners. Provided with the agenda is a copy of the retainer agreement project assignment with HRG for the 2025 Susquehanna Township paving project to perform the following: engineering, design, bidding, contract award, construction observation, contract administration, project management administration for the cost not to exceed $74,165. The following locations have been identified by the township contingent upon township's available budget. Base bid would be Wood Street, where the sanitary sewer project ended, to Schoolhouse Lane, Nottingham Way, Rustic Drive, from Rustic Drive to Schoolhouse Lane. The alternates would be Schoolhouse Lane from Sylvan Place to the Western Bridge approach near Lower Paxton Township line, Sylvan Place between Shell and Schoolhouse Lane, Penrose, Maple Street, Wood Street, and Locust Street. Schoolhouse Lane to Schoolhouse Lane. This also includes multiple ADA and upgrades in that corridor.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that the board approve the retainer agreement project assignment for HRG for the 2025 Susquehanna Township paving project.
Second.
Yep. Whoa. Second by Commissioner Floyd. Just begin. Any comments, questions?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes.
Very briefly, I've seen different maps of the roads to be treated. for this project. Does alternative include all of them, or is it either or?
So base bid would be the Wood Street, the Nottingham Way, and Rustic Drive. All the alternates would be, each road would be bid separately with a cost, so you could be kind of like an à la carte. You could say we want to do these 4 or not these 2, or we want to do all of them based on what the price comes back. It gives you a lot more flexibility and on how large scale, depending on what the numbers are. Getting this out earlier this year than we have in the last 2 years, I think we're going to be a lot more competitive in pricing.
Y'all know we're 1 month ahead of last year, and we were ahead last year, previous year, so this is really good. I like seeing that.
And we'll have more discussion on paving under the public works report.
Very good. The reason I ask is, I think it's probably been 30 years, thereabouts, when this whole area, since this whole area has received a proper road treatment. I mean, patches and prevention and fixes and things, but nothing along the lines of what this project entails. And the more the better. It's because there's no storm drains. The roads are the storm drains. So the more we can address in a project, the more effective I think it will be. Thank you for answering. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions or comments? What will the total budget be about?
I believe we estimated it was.
It'll be up in my engineer's report, roughly $1 million. I'll have a closer budget once we get to the next.
That's fine. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Nate. Ordinances, resolutions. First up is authorization to advertise a public hearing on an ordinance amending Chapter 8 floodplains. Mr. McBreach.
Thank you, Mr. President. Provided with the agenda is a draft of the proposed red line changes to Chapter 8 floodplains and a memorandum from Township staff outlining the proposed changes and the reasons for their proposal. The changes to the chapter relate to the designation of a floodplain administrator and the mechanism of fee calculation for floodplain development permits. The proposed changes to the chapter would enable more streamlined and efficient administration of township floodplain regulations. This evening, the board is asked to review the proposed changes and, if so desired, to schedule a public hearing on the ordinance amendment for Thursday, March 13th. The red line changes are provided with the agenda. They're very simple changes. I believe it's 2 changes, but the issue we're having now is our floodplain ordinance designates the zoning officer as the township official who would serve as the floodplain administrator. So for official actions relating to floodplain administration, enforcement notices, permitting, other administrative functions, I've been signing off on everything because we need to be very careful that the officials designated in these positions are, fulfilling those roles. This would appoint by ordinance the Township Stormwater Management Coordinator as the designated floodplain administrator. Ms. Guidley has much more technical training on floodplain administration. I'll let her get into any of the technical provisions if there are any questions. But she pretty much does all of the floodplain administration currently, and I kind of just sign off on it because I'm designated that by ordinance. The second piece to it is our floodplain ordinance currently has a provision that the fee amount for floodplain development permits is based off of construction costs. And this would just be a cleanup change to change the fee amount as established by the fee schedule, which is passed by the commissioners by resolution. This is overall a small step in making some pretty substantial improvements to the township's floodplain program. I know that if there are any questions on the specifics, again, I'll defer to Ms. Guidley. But the township staff has been directed by PEMA and FEMA to take a much more active approach in floodplain administration, and this will be a step in that direction in improving our program.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I move to authorize the advertisement for a public hearing for March 13, 2025 on the amendment to Chapter 8 floodplains of the Susquehanna Township Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Barcheck, seconded by Commissioner Billon. You okay with this, Kathleen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Any comments or questions from the board? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is review and authorization for scheduling a public hearing in the zoning ordinance text and map amendment for zoning 4401 Deer Path Road from R1 to BR and revising standards for elementary and secondary schools.
Thank you, Mr. President. Provided with the agenda is a copy of the proposed ordinance amending Chapter 27 zoning by rezoning a portion of 4401 Deer Path Road from the R1 Low Density Residential Zoning District to the BOR Business Office Residential Zoning District. 4401 Deer Path Road is currently occupied by an office building directly to our west. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with it, but just for context. The proposed ordinance also revises and removes certain specific criteria that are applicable to elementary and secondary school uses. The intent of this ordinance is to facilitate the development of 4401 Deer Path Road as a school and district office facility for the township school district. Given the situation that the school district is in and the overall urgency of the situation, staff is requesting 2 forms of action tonight. The first would be to send this amendment to the Township Planning Commission and the Dauphin County Planning Commission for their review and recommendation. And the second piece of this would be to simultaneously schedule a public hearing on this matter for the 13th of March. And the proposed changes are, a red line copy was provided. As it stands, 4401 Deer Path is split almost directly down the middle of the parcel with the BOR district and the R1 district, so about half of it is legally non-conforming. This is more of a cleanup change than anything else in terms of the rezoning part of it. And in terms of the amendment to the text, it would amend the specific use criteria for schools. Myself, Ms. Everly, other members of township staff have been working with the Susquehanna Township School District and their representatives on what amendments would need to be made to the zoning ordinance to facilitate the speedy reuse of that property as a school. And there were a couple of minor changes that would need to be made to the existing regulations. Removing impervious lot coverage requirements, vegetative coverage requirements, a couple other small changes, but this would help facilitate the use of that property as a school. And I believe Dr. Willis and Mr. Anderson from the school district are here, along with Mr. Godfrey from Dollarwood Engineering, if there are any questions for them. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody wish to say anything from the school district before we take action on the motions?
I would just,
Dr. Tamara Willis
hello.
is in the
Good
house.
morning, everyone. Well, first of all, I would just like to thank you all for even taking this under consideration this evening. As you all have mentioned, and you know very well, we have an enrollment increase. We are the fastest growing school district in all of Dauphin County, and as a result, we do have modulars that you have graciously allowed us to place on our property, but we are looking to move our students out of those modulars, and this will provide an opportunity to get a number of those learners out of the modulars while we work to place a building on the Wayne Avenue property that we have just acquired on the 31st of January. So this is a part of a broader plan to address our enrollment needs while also addressing the increase in our district staff. We're also over capacity in our district building right now as well. Given all of the new students, we are providing more services, and therefore we need more staff. So we appreciate your consideration this evening.
All right.
All right.
On the first motion,
Mr. President, I'd like to refer the proposed ordinance to the Township and Common Planning Commission for review.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Paloma. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then I'm on a roll myself, I'll move that the board authorize the advertisement of a public hearing for March 16th on the proposed ordinance.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions, Mr. Napoli?
No, sir.
Okay. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Big step for the school district. Let's get it done.
Yes.
Let's go.
Well, if you was okay, we moving on.
Township historian, Mr. Jesse Rawls. Okay, appointments. I don't think we're ready to go with any tonight, correct me if I'm wrong. Go into staff reports, Township Manager.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have one item. Tonight, we want to formally acknowledge, unfortunately, the departure of our Public Works Director, Nate, who has served the township for the past 3 years. While my time working alongside Nate has been far too short, I can confidently say that he has been an invaluable asset to our entire community. During his tenure, the Public Works Department has made significant strides. Under his leadership, the department has successfully tackled key projects internally, improved communications with our residents, enhanced response time to address safety concerns, and provided crucial support for long-term planning, as you heard this evening. These accomplishments are a direct reflection of Nate's dedication and expertise. We are truly grateful, Nate, for your contributions to the township. He has been a great member of our team, and we will certainly miss him. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well put. You will be missed, Nate. Thank you. Yeah, that sums it up. Okay, Public Safety Police, Chief, do you have anything?
Nothing, sir.
Thank you. Community Development, I think we covered that. Good there?
Yes, sir. No report.
Okay. Public Works.
I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to be able to serve you and the residents of Susquehanna Township the last 3 years. I've grown a lot as a person, and it's thanks to you guys, our professional services I've worked with every day, the rest of the staff, and my employees. Wasn't an easy decision. It's a decision I need to make, for myself, but I appreciate all opportunities and getting to know everybody and building these relationships. And hopefully have everything set that things can continue in the path that we've already tried to establish. I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate everything. It's been an honor to work with all of you. With that being said, I don't want to continue anything. My report is attached. We put, I'm going to have Alex come up here. We have a slideshow presentation here going over, kind of outlining what Commissioner Sanderson was talking about, where we're looking to go the next few years. This does take into account that we've had a discussion on funding, liquid fuels funding. I'm not sure if everyone was present. Liquid fuels funding is slowly decreasing yearly due to reusable fuels, to electric cars. When I started here, it was COVID kind of messing things up, but we were getting roughly shy of $1 million, and now we're around $890,000 a year. A lot of it has to do with better fuel efficiency cars and stuff of that nature. So between the two of us here, we'll kind of tag team.
However you want to do it.
We'll go through it. All right. So like we discussed, these are the streets that were proposed for 2025, which you guys already voted in the funding source. Locust Street does not qualify for liquid fuels, so it'll be out of the TIF fund. There's one street that's not on there that we are going to be looking at. Alex and Travis will work on that, and that is a one block section of 21st Street in Edgemont that ultimately, especially with this type of winter, has went back to dirt. I think we can get it cheap enough, like we did that one alleyway last year, that it would just be 3 pricing, and you guys vote on the lowest, and we'll be able to get that done this year as well. So this is the map for 2025, which will segue into a 2026. Was there a slide? No, which will segue into a 2026 stormwater drainage project, which will be conducted by the authority just south of this area, which will address the stormwater deficiencies in that area, culvert piping, stream bank restoration, the addition of inlets. So this would get everything from the sewer mini basin project that ended this last year, segueing into the stormwater project in 2026.
So just as was mentioned previously, you've actually seen this presentation, so I'm not going to beat it to death. You know, we're looking at the data now when selecting, you know, roadways for consideration of improvement. So the township was where you had a pavement management plan done back in 2022. The maps that are up there demonstrates the results, with green being a better pavement condition index, which obviously means the road is in very good to good shape. And then as it goes down the color line to a red or a brownish purple, those are deteriorating roadways. In the middle are roadways that we'd like to target for maintenance and upkeep prior to them turning into you know, a very poor or failed condition, as it's much more expensive to bring those failed roadways up to a decent condition. Generally takes reconstruction rather than something like microsurfacing, where you can take a fair street, do a surface treatment to it, and extend the life prior to it you know, going into a poor or a very poor condition. So in the 2025 project, again, as Nate said, you know, we have the paving of the roads that we're looking at. We're also doing some pretty major ADA improvements in the area. A lot of ADA ramps, I believe, north of 25, and additional crosswalks as well. So pedestrian movement through the area should be improved, along with the road surfacing projects, and then also the replacement of the speed humps on Wood Street, which we're going to go to a tabletop full width rather than having everyone cut through the center line. Sorry. So, good. So again, as Mr. President, you asked, bottom right there, we're looking at just north of $1 million for the 2025. These are budgetary figures. We'll further refine those as we go out and make exact measurements of sidewalk and ADA ramps and all that through this contract you just voted to award. But budgetary, that's what we're looking at, with just south of $1 million coming out of liquid fuels funding.
This one. So going back to funding, and we had the discussion on how liquid fuels is, you know, we're not getting as much, and the fund balance has been lowering as we do this. So a proposal is you take a break from paving in 2026 and do other type road maintenance like microsurfacing, where we can touch a lot more roads and get, say if they're at an index of 70, 75, get them back to a 90 and prolong the life of that road so it doesn't become that road that needs $1 million worth of work. These are an area that we talked about doing 2 years ago, but due to the cost of that year's paving contract, they got nixed. They're still in the condition, there's a few minor repairs that we will make in-house on those roads prior to microsurfacing. But these were ones that were deferred. So part of this plan is possibly, and it's up to the board here, is every other year do microsurfacing, allowing a fund balance to go back into liquid fuels. So do microsurfacing a year, paving a year, microsurfacing a year, which allows you to keep that balance. We can continue to do this type of project. I know we went heavy on paving right away because paving hasn't been done for a while. There was some areas that needed that improvement significantly, like right off the bat. I think we're getting to a good place where we can start alternating those type things. In-house, we've been crack sealing some of these roads internally as a public works department, which also raises that index, which will come down to the discussion probably that's on the next slide. That's the cost estimate for microsurfacing for 2027. So that tells you how many roads and the cost versus if we had to do full repair. Okay, so Edgemont was originally slated for 2026. If you follow Stormwater Coordinator Gogley and the authority, they just finished having the entire Edgemont community televised with a contract with USG, I believe it was, and I think they're still waiting on that data. So with what comes back with that, there's probably going to be a significant amount of stormwater repairs in the Edgemont community. With that, paving will be happening through the authority where the repairs and upgrades are being made. So that would be pushing any paving that was supposed to be in Edgemont in 2026 to be looked at in 2027, which what hasn't been done as part of the stormwater upgrades. And then my recommendation is, I think it was 2017 HRT did a road index study, and then we did one my first year in 2022. In 2027, continue that and do another study so we can capture all the upgrades that the authority has done in mini basin projects, all the upgrades and internal work that the public works staff has done, and everything that has been done in the approved capital projects and the microsurfacing. Get a new set of priorities where we need to go next. Because there's still, within these next couple of years, there's going to be a pump station and stuff upgrade in the authority. Once that's done, that community is going to get repaved by the authority. It did get paved as part of the sewer project because of the amount of construction it's going to have in that area. They want to damage road. So not just on the township side, there's going to still be in the next couple of years, authority side, pavement restoration stuff. And I think 2027 is a good year to reevaluate where the township is and create that new index and study and see which areas you need to attack next.
Nate, if I may ask this clarification, as you mentioned, Edgemont was scheduled in 2026, and what you're saying now, because of the trying to alternate with the micro surfacing, you're looking at 2027, but it's going to be a combination of the liquid fuels and the stormwater authority monies, depending on where roads are being...
I'll reference the stormwater part to Kathleen because I'm not sure exactly where they're at with the televising. I believe a plan will be created this year.
Yes. Yeah, we're in the final stages of getting the information from USG, who did the televising. But it will probably be a longer process for GHD to make a plan. So I believe 2027 would be the earliest, or 2026 would be the earliest those improvements we could start moving the process of those.
For stormwater? For
stormwater improvements, and then we would be able to use the stormwater fund to pay for that paving.
Rather than liquid fuels? You're saying, or would there be
Yeah,
accommodating
correct. So,
funding on?
so historically, at least in my 3 years here, we've been kind of following our street cut ordinance in a way here, especially since we upgraded it. That's why this year, Deer Path and Galen got switched from liquid fuels to Stormwater Authority to pay for those. Because if a contractor came in and did the amount of utility work that we did, we would require the contractor to pay curb to curb. So we're following our own ordinance, and if we're doing that much stormwater's gonna pay curb to curb, same as we do in mini basins when we put in new sewer mains and laterals. And what's not captured on this is we've had a lot of roads paved with contractors this year and last year. Dogwood here in the spring, that entire length of that road is getting paved by Veolia. We're gonna have quite a few streets getting paved that haven't already been paved by UGI in the Uptown neighborhood. So all that will get captured. And we're just following what we're requiring everyone else to do, which will hopefully extend the funds of the liquid fuels that will.
And that makes sense, and now that you've explained this for my edification, and I'll be asked by residents in Edgemont, in 2027, then reading that top line, that roads that are not affected by the stormwater project would be paved consistent to what we were talking about for 2026 with the liquid fuels, and then the stormwater infrastructure project, when that's completed, which may be beyond 2027, that would be done. Those roads that were affected by the stormwater project.
If you look at the slide, these were the roads that we were proposing for 2026. So a section of these would probably be eliminated as part of the stormwater portion. So then you would have to reevaluate after that's completed what's left and what funding you have at that time, where liquid fuels is at, how bad of a winter you have this year. You know, liquid fuels wise, we budget roughly $100,000 a year for salt. We're going to surpass that significantly this year. So that affects, so you're going to have to look at the funding at that time and what the fund balance is. But ultimately, that is the plan we're looking at, but there's a lot of variables.
Okay, I think we're saying the same thing, that's the, I mean, subject to, as you say, with amount of funding, but it would be a two-step tango, basically paid with liquid fuels, and after that, with the stormwater, depending on where things stand, Stormwater Authority would pay for the rest.
Right, so it's whether the stormwater project comes in first and is constructed, then we would take a look at this list, take out those that were improved through the stormwater project, and put out a separate project just for paving on the remaining streets. And depending on how much is taken care of by the stormwater project, there could be potential to add streets, potentially in other locations to this contract.
Yeah, it's just we're too far ahead. I mean,
and that's why it's kind of, it's not as defined. It's a plan at this point. It's not a project.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you.
And Mr. President, if I could jump in here.
Yes, ma'am.
So I appreciate that we've gone to an objective approach to determining the condition of the streets with the studies we've done. And I just want to go on the record saying this. I also understand why we're doing streets in the same area that we're doing stormwater projects or sewer projects, because the roads are already torn up. But I've voiced these concerns before. So if you have streets that are in need of repair and you don't have a stormwater project or a sewer project going on in that neighborhood, when are those streets going to get paved? Because it looks like we alternate from storm or sewer projects to micro-servicing to another storm or sewer project. So what about the roads that were evaluated as failing or near failing, and you don't have a project going in that ward? So when do they get addressed?
So I don't have the slide that goes through the whole plan. We do have a pavement management plan. I believe it goes out to 2029 now, and it does address some of those other roads.
But some of them have already been skipped over in favor of doing where you're doing which I understand, you know, a scale of economies, you're consolidating, but when do those other roads get done if they're not part of a scale of economy project?
Well, and that's where when we created this, you know, the original plan, I think, was based on $2.5–3.5 million a year worth of paving. We can't do that, so everything got cut almost by a quarter. I know, like the uptown neighborhood specifically, and this, I mean, I have it in my notes for after my departure, is UGI is gonna be in there till 2027 digging those roads up. I don't, me personally, don't wanna go in there and do any type of work until I know they're done, they met all their DEP requirements, and then, you know, you do that assessment in 2027, you get a new evaluation, you know, that's when you possibly be looking at, okay, everyone's out of the way in the uptown neighborhood. Maybe now's the time to, what can we do that needs paving, what do we do that needs microsurfacing? Because UGI every year, they're just creeping further and further into the township from the city. If we can get them to pave a couple alleyways for us and this, you know, that will also help when it comes to that time, 2027, 2028, of, hey, now we can get a little more paved because we got this from them. Same with, I would never even suggest paving Commissioner Napper's neighborhood, because I know Veolia is going to be in there in the next 3 years. They're planning on replacing every main, but the scale of their main replacements through our ordinance requires them to do curb-to-curb paving. So a lot of it is utility project based too, of where we're getting pushed out of. And with doing that, we can also do some cost share with them, which will lower some of our costs, or fee in lieu of, which I'm in discussions. Usually I kind of shut me down because they thought, oh, we can do base to grade and not have to pay for final. I'm like, no, you can pay us for what you're saving on final and we can add it to our paving contract. So there's a whole strategic line of why we are staying out of some neighborhoods due to utility upgrades and DEP requirements for other utilities. The roads that are paved, as far as through our authority projects, you know, they were done in, by the end of 2025, we were required to have them done as part of our consent agreement with DEP. Now, we did get a 2-year extension because Lower Paxton's 2 years behind us, and we need to see where their numbers come in when they meet compliance to see where, if we need to do any more on the authority side. But we can't fully do that until Lower Paxton catches up, because they're 2 years behind us. So DEP did give us a 2-year extension, so we'll be on the same deadline as them, even though we've met our requirements. But there may be more, but we won't know until they reduce their I&I, which comes through the township. So I hope I answered.
Well, and you know, I'll acknowledge that you really have worked with the utilities when they have come in to, you know, have them repave as much as, you know, you can according to our ordinances. I know you've done that, but I was just looking out to the future.
Yeah.
You know, what's the prospect for other roads getting paved? But I certainly appreciate if there is a schedule of more utility work, you don't want to pave a road that's going to be torn.
And that's why I think most of these utilities and DEP, it sounds like 2027 is a hard deadline for a lot, water, gas, and all them. So I think we'll know where we're at, and then that's a good time to do that paving condition index and create a new 5, 6, 7 year paving plan off that.
So in 2028, after they've completed the work, do the.
Yeah, so when we have, you know, it doesn't have to be 2027 exactly. It doesn't have to be exactly 5 year, but the ballpark reassessment period is a 5 years. So yeah, we wouldn't want to necessarily go in there knowing that UGI is going to be out of there in 6 months. You know, we're going to wait until they're out of there and get a good reassessment. So, yeah.
That makes sense.
And we're meeting with these utilities every 4 months, every quarter. We sit down not only, you know, with the utilities, but we also meet in-house to address all the projects. So that we don't waste money. Also with the sewer authority, so we want to make sure we're not paving before the sewer's going to come back in. We're looking out for it.
Well, I have to ask the questions because people want to know.
Yeah, I'm glad you
which roads are getting paved and
Yep.
why, so you got answers.
And certainly if you have, you know, complaints or there's roads in serious jeopardy of failing, you know, we have the public works committee meetings You know, you can bring those to us, we can discuss them. If it's something like 21st Street, and we can do it under like a TIF fund as a separate project, you know, below the bid threshold, then, you know, that's possible too, you know, with everyone's authorization. I'm certainly not speaking on behalf of the township, but yeah, there's potential to add streets that are in need. So it's a fluid, like I said, in 2027, this is a plan, it's not a project. It can be revised to include, you know, other streets as necessary. So.
Is that it?
I think that is it.
Well, I'd just like to say we've come a long way. You know, when I first got on the board, I was asked, all the commissioners were asked, hey, give us a list of streets you want to pave. And, you know, is that a scientific way to ask somebody like me, you know, what needs paved versus, you know, other parts of the township versus projects that might be coming through that we didn't even know were coming through because it was not the kind of coordination that Steve Knapp just talked about. I mean, we've come so far, and it makes me so proud to do that, along with the engagement with the authority. Because, I mean, they were right down the hall, but they wouldn't even apply for a road cut. And we'd find out a mini basic project was going on. I mean, it was just, it's night and day. And so I was really proud to be a part of that, proud of the guidance that Commissioner Knapp brought to this whole thing, and this one. And, you know, you and your service here kind of brought it all together in terms of bringing people together, getting the most out of it. I mean, this is really the way government should be operated. You know, it's not still not perfect. It will never be perfect, but it's about as close as we can get. And I've been really proud to be a part of it to the limited extent that I've been. But I've been admiring your work, and I really appreciate what you've done despite, you know, obstacles that come down the road. So
I appreciate it,
thank you,
Mr. President. And as far as that utility coordination, Travis will continue to go to those meetings. He's been going with me. HRG here within the last year has sent a representative, Chad Kleinfeld. He's been going to them and, you know, preaching like the municipalities that they represent. These are the projects, how can we work together? I know in doing so, we were able to solve a lot of PP&L issues because there's a PP&L rep right there, and he makes a phone call like that day, and I know it's helped get other projects moving that have been on hold. So I think between Travis, your engineers, I think as long as everyone continues to do this utility coordinating, it's going to continue the route that we've set forward. All my contacts I've made in my last 19 years and the ones here, they are all on a spreadsheet. So anyone that's in that role will have every email address I have, every phone number I have, who they are, who they coordinate with. So all that information is there at disposal.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Is that Public Works? Engineering, you don't have any.
I spoke enough.
Okay. Law Bureau.
I'm way over my pitch count for comment. However, I would like to take a point of personal privilege and thank Nate for his work. It's been a pleasure to work with him, and I'm going to have to find someone else to cause trouble, but, you know, I appreciate his work and his dedication to the township. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Parks and Rec, Doug? Anything?
Yeah, my report.
All right, moving on to consent agenda. Number of items here. Go first, and then feel free to comment or ask questions at the end of the reading. Consent agenda. Approved statement of bills paid for January 2025. Approved purchase of a truck for the Public Works Department in the amount of $121,250 from Hoffman Ford using Co-Stars. This will be paid out of the Capital Improvement Purchase Fund. Accept the resignation of Nathan Berguner, Public Works Director, effective 2/21/25. and unfortunately accept the resignation of Joe Lovett, Finance Director, effective 2/28/20. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent?
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anybody wish to discuss any or all of the items just read off?
I'd just like to wish Jill the best in her future endeavor. We really appreciate the work that you did here, and we're going to miss you.
I say we resend them. You're not allowed to go. Go for you guys.
How many votes do we need to not vote on CND? I would like to thank Cheeto and Nate for your service to the township. In my short-term year so far, I've seen you're some of the best people I've known to work in government, so good luck in your next endeavors.
We'll still have Jill for one more meeting, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
I'll tell the next one.
all right, any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Susquehanna Township banner policy, Doug.
Thank you, board. This is the last time I'll be up here tonight. So in your copy or your packet is a banner policy that we've developed to help us better manage all the banners and everything that our youth partnership, our partner organizations use as part of their sponsorships and everything like that. One of the things that have happened most recently back in August when the tornado came through, we experienced an extensive amount of fence damage at Veterans Park, in part by one of the organizations having larger banners on those fences that turned into big sales that help lay them all over. This policy will kind of give us a standard size and how they're going to be attached and wind slits that are going to be required in all those banners to help air pass through those. And really will aesthetically help the parks as well, so you don't have all multiple sizes all over the place and everything like that. So if the board does approve the new policy, it will then be forwarded off to our partner organizations, as well as as they're making their plans for the upcoming spring and summer seasons, they'll have all that information at hand.
Move to approve the Susquehanna Township banner policy.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Polona. Sorry. Any comments or questions? He did sneak it in before you there, Carl. Don't feel bad. You'll get the next one. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner comments? Oh, yeah, I missed one. Jill.
Yeah, it just looked, it was kind of slimy some of the way.
I'm sitting here all day waiting to talk.
Yeah.
So, provided in the agenda is a copy of a variance submitted by Natalie Wallace. She is online. She is the owner of Honey Bear Ice Cream. She is also a resident of the township, as well as doing business within the township. The property that is being requested for a grease trap interceptor variance is located at 3525 North 6th Street. The owner intends to manufacture ice cream at this location for retail sale at other locations, not at this one, so it would not be a restaurant. The premises, the township ordinance requirement of a 1,000-gallon grease trap is asked to be waived The authority engineers had reviewed the data as well as the specs of the proposed grease trap interceptor, and the township authority has approved that variance request. This board is being asked to approve the grease trap variance request for 3525 North 6th Street, subject to conditions imposed by the authority, such as that location would not have any restaurant facilities in that property.
Mr. President, I'm in support of anything that helps produce ice cream. So with that, I'm going to move to approve the grease trap variance request, subject to the conditions imposed by the Susquehanna Township Authority.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Cross.
You got them.
Comments or questions?
And the owner is online if anyone has any questions.
Hi, Ms. Wallace.
No samples?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you guys. I was there earlier and then I had to leave. I saw where I was on the agenda. I was like, oh, I don't think I can stay the whole time, but I did have ice cream for you. Next time. But yes, does anyone have any questions about this variance request?
I think we're all good, yeah.
Great, thank you so much.
Let me just say for the record that when Commissioner Napper asked for ice cream samples, he was not establishing a quid pro quo. Commissioner Napper cannot be bought, he can be leased for ice cream.
Yes.
And I join him.
He screams for ice cream. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioner comments? Have we had?
Just quick, I just want to voice my support. Congratulations to Nate. Hope you happy with your next career move, and really appreciated working with you on Public Works over the last few years. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner comments? Hearing none, we don't have our Burton adjournment, so we'll have to open it up to somebody else.
Move to adjourn.
Somebody voice strikes again.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. Comments or questions on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we're out of here.